Hello everyone, this is Rory Reviewer. Sorry. And I know my hair is a mess. Uh, so I was browsing YouTube just a few hours ago, and I came across a YouTuber named Darren Locke. And he had some things on his channel I thought were very interesting. I'll link you to his channel below. But what I thought was interesting was he had these things called live listens, where he just listened to a CD or something and just said his thoughts on what he was listening to it as he was listening to it. And I thought this was a cool idea, and I thought it was an idea that I might like to try. There's a lot of music on my iTunes that I have never heard before, or I'm not so familiar with, both classical and non-classical. And I thought this would be a fun kind of thing to do. We'll see if it works or not. You guys let me know if it's good. So the first piece I want to do for a live listen is a relatively short classical piece by Ligeti called Chamber Concerto. Now I'm fairly familiar with Ligeti's work, but Chamber Concerto is not something I'm too familiar with. So yeah, let's start this listen. My headphones aren't that good. I just have these really cheap $20 ones I got at Walgreens, but they get the job done. Alright, so I'm ready to listen. This is about a 20-minute piece. So if you guys want to listen, I'll tell you when I'm listening. So 3, 2, 1. So it starts out with these very mysterious woodwind textures. It's like a really foggy morning, sort of. You can hardly tell what's going on in the individual voices, but... Oh. And then the violins come in, or strings. I can already tell this is going to be a very texture-driven piece, like a lot of Ligeti's music is. I like that transition from the woodwinds to the strings. Very nicely done. The strings are beautiful. Same sort of shrouded mystery sort of textures. Oh. There's this beautiful horn that pierces above everything. That's a really nice touch. Oh, that horn is great. So now it's starting to shift. It's getting very frantic. Still very soft and mysterious, but no longer lugubrious. Now it's jittery and nervous. Right now it sounds like the woodwinds are starting to make themselves more melodic, but the strings are still very jittery underneath. Everything just came to a stop. They're just the strings trilling. It's very suspenseful. You don't know where it's gonna go. Anything could happen with Ligeti. Still trilling. Whoa. It just opened up. It's very spacious. Very high and low. That's great. I love that. These beautiful, they sound like organ clusters. I don't think it's an organ. I'm not sure though. It's not an organ, but it's very organ-like, the sound. This is beautifully dark chords with the high and the low. Us. I love all the little details in the harmony that are constantly shifting. It's getting more frantic again. Some very loud, brash chords. It's very low. The sound just got very angry and loud. That was surprising. It's back to being very frantic, but this time the textures are constantly changing. It's very exciting. I love this. It's slowing down. It's a beautiful transition to it being slower. Well, I guess that was the end of the first movement. It was a very nice ending. Nice way to finish it with a culmination with those fast shifting textures. It's very nice. Okay, now we're back to these very mysterious, foggy sort of chords to begin the second movement. There's a string instrument and an oboe that are popping out of the texture. And then a flute. Yeah, this is a piece where there's a general texture and then little instruments here and there pop out of the general texture. Sounds like an organ again. I'm not sure if there's an organ in this piece. I didn't look at the instrumentation beforehand. But The horn sounds like it's making some sort of melody. The clarinets are sort of bubbling underneath it. This horn part is one of the first sort of long, continuous melodies I've heard in this piece. Sort of an oboe and horn duet going on. I love the sound of those burbly clarinets. I love the sound of the clarinet in general. It fits this piece very well. It almost sounds like a canon between the horn and the oboe. Almost. I'm not sure if it is. Maybe. And another very spacious chord. In fact, I think it's the same one. Very high and very low at the same time. A very low piano. There seem to be certain textural motifs holding this piece together that are continuing throughout the movements. Ooh, very shrieky. The strings, the very high strings, very high clarinet, and this really shrieking texture. It's really cool, but underneath it, there's these very pure chords, almost major chords, I think. Of course, they're not functioning as major chords, of course, but that's really interesting. That's my favorite thing I think I've heard so far. Very shrieking. There's that contrast between this very shrieking texture above and very low, pure chords both underneath it. Now it's becoming more frantic. The high shrieking part was almost dance-like. I felt it was kind of had sort of a dancing feel to it. Now it's slowing down. It's very beautiful. Very beautiful slow downs in this piece. And now it's jittery strings again, just like in the last movement. And again, that very stratified texture, very high and very low. It seems to be common in this piece. And the second movement ended. A very calm note. So let's see what the third movement has to offer. So there's instruments accenting everywhere. Sounds very unpredictable. Very unstable. Sounds like it could collapse at any moment. Okay, so there's these pizzicato. This pizzicato part here, to me it's very reminiscent of the third movement in his second string quartet, which he wrote 2 years earlier than this. So there's a harpsichord. And more pizzicato from the strings. All the pizzicatos are going at different speeds. It's very reminiscent of the third movement of his second string quartet. In fact, I probably think, I'm almost sure, he drew inspiration from that for this movement. Oh yeah, he did. I can hear it very clearly. You can hear all the pizzicatos, very loud pizzicatos, going at all different speeds. This happened in that movement in the second string quartet too. The piano. Sounds like space, like a science fiction soundtrack. Ooh, and very low. Horns. Almost sounds tribal now. They're about to bring out the body to sacrifice. That's what it kind of sounds like. Ooh. A very shrieky clarinet. Piano. It's like the instruments are supposed to be in sync, but they can't get together. It's interesting. It's an interesting texture. Bum, 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 bum. That sounds like clocks. Sounds like a bunch of clocks going at different speeds. Everything stopped. But there's still random accents, random instruments just going boop. Could not be random. I'm not sure. It ended kind of funnily. That's not a word. But it ended with sort of, I don't know what that was. Was it a glockenspiel? It just ended really suddenly. It was funny. So now the fourth movement. I think this is the last movement. More burbling clarinet textures. Now over to middle string textures. Ooh. That sounds like Christmas to me. Lots of fluttery woodwinds. Very high textures right now. More stratified textures, but this time the textures are moving too. So it's like a flute. Sounds almost like a piccolo and a very low clarinet sound. This is like sort of like the end of the first movement. There's very frantic sounds, and it's switching textures constantly. It's pretty exciting. Very very grumbly low bass. That's cool. For a minute, the piano part back there was pretty crazy. More piano, more crazy piano. Very low this time. These very strong horn accents interrupting the action. It's getting calmer. Maybe not. The strings are still, now strings doing their thing. Now the woodwinds are building slow chords, while the strings are still being very frantic underneath. Sounds very ethereal at times. It's beautiful. Very high note is growing louder and louder. And more expressive. Oh. Ooh. No. It's a very sudden ending. It ended unexpectedly. It sounded like things were still going on. So that's the end of the piece. So, it's pretty much what I expected from Ligeti. Very high quality music, very cool textures. You know, great transitions, great variety. Just pretty much everything you expect from Ligeti. So yeah, well, let me know how that was. If it was fun or it wasn't fun. I don't know. Oh, it's 2 in the morning. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.